Hey everyone, welcome to the Stay Hungry podcast. Today, our special guest is former paratrooper, world kickboxing champion, and owner of the UK's largest chain of martial arts centres, none other than Lee Matthews. From soldier to seven-figure business owner. Let's go. Hey Lee, how's it going?
Great. Thank you for having
Excellent.
me.
Excellent. No, pleasure to finally speak to you now. Obviously, I know you've just sold out a business day for martial arts club owners. So why do you do what you do? Why do you love it so much?
So basically, I've been teaching martial arts about 25 years now, since I left the military, and just basically did what I was doing as a soldier. Turned up on time, looked smart and professional, you know, owned the floor, give a good professional alpha male kind of vibe about yourself, and did exactly what I said I was going to do, which in business, as you know, is not really what happens very often, is it? People
So
promise the world
So,
and
so yeah,
deliver.
my mentor, that's his phrase. Do what you said you would, and I was like, well, obviously, but like say,
Yeah,
99% of people, you turn up on time. You say, do what you said you would. You're ahead of 99% of the competition.
exactly. Just keep showing up, doing things properly, and people start to learn. So because of that, I was able to build quite a successful martial arts centre in Telford. And then from that, what happened is we then expanded into multiple locations and I ended up franchising many years later, making all the mistakes you can imagine, going through all the rigmarole and dramas that happen in business, personally and professionally, because you really do get pulled from pillar to post in business. It's not for the faint-hearted, is it? You can experience all the ups and downs of life times 100. So obviously getting schooled in the life of hard knocks at the same time builds up what's in the end has now become the biggest chain of martial arts centres in the UK. Opened over 200 martial arts centres over the 25 years. So the natural progression was, I've been keeping this stuff in-house for a very long time with my own guys and delivering our training program via my own selection course, which was closed doors and a
Right.
very difficult course to pass as well physically. So the information wasn't really accessible to everyone. So I've recently, last year, I wrote a book. I thought I'm going to put this information out there now. I'm at a point in my life where I don't need to do it. I'm successful, but I kind of wanted to do it. So I wrote the book, putting some of the processes that outlining what I call my 6 rounds of success, which is the systems and processes put in a logical order for people to
Mhm.
understand. Put that down into a book. The book was released on the 31st of October last year when I was in hospital, the day after I had a new hip, actually. I thought I'll be fine. So I was all drugged up at the time. But we sold in all three categories. It was best Amazon #1 bestseller
Nice.
within a day for a good for a good run. So from that, off the back of that, I put a seminar on, as you were just referring to, in Telford on Saturday, just gone Saturday the 13th of January, and we sold out. We had 120 places, but we had to put another table in the end. We had 130 odd people that turned up,
Wow.
and some really big players from all over the UK, as far as Scotland and Wales, and some of the guys in the room had thousands of students. I think the biggest one had 2,600 students. Another one had 1,500 students, and there was probably 10 people in the room that had over 1,000, and
Wow.
probably 20 or 30 in the room that had over 500. And the rest of them were any varying amounts from just getting started to somewhere in between. But so there's some really big hitters in there, which was nice to see.
And
Because
why do you love it so much? What was the best part of the day?
um, being able to show off my network of friends, because I had 12 guest speakers, I
Mhm.
had 6 rounds, and each round I had 2 speakers which were speaking about topics related to that particular part of the process. Which the first one's like preparation. So my rounds are is ready, relaunch, rapid growth, retention, restructure, and repeat. And I've got a
Nice.
military analogy for each of them. I could probably fill a whole podcast just with that, so I won't bore you all. But basically, I have a military analogy for each of those because obviously I was a paratrooper. So I tie that into a bit of a story as well. I think helps make it like a multi-dimensional experience while you're learning, rather than just being systems and processes. It's like a journey I take you on from red on as a paratrooper in the plane to green on go, which is your launch night, to advance to battle, which then the battle, then the reorg, and then the training and preparation, and then you start again.
Blimey.
So,
Wow. I've just finished reading David Goggins' second book,
oh
Never
right, yeah, I've not
Finished.
read that
And
one, the second one. Yeah,
it really good, really good. And the last section is about his training as a smoke jumper. And he's talking about jumping out of planes and stuff where all these forest fires are. And it's like, and he's talking about
oh yeah, that's right.
the pain in his bad knees, you know, and he's got a metal plate in one of his knees and like jumping out of a plane. And like, I mean, I want to talk about the military, definitely. I mean, was it straight into the military after school? And had your martial arts journey already started then?
So yeah, so I started martial arts as a kid, probably just at the local centres. I lived in Telford, so back in the 80s. I was born in 1976, so growing up like in the 80s when you were cutting about, you just had to go to where the local sports centre, whatever was on at the local sports centre. So I think I started off in jiu-jitsu, and then I did kung fu and the karate, and so I was trying all the different ones, and then I took it a little bit more seriously as you kind of get to upper school and things get a little bit, there's a lot of big kids about, you're getting a lot of confrontations.
So
And
is that why you started?
yeah, I think
Was there
so.
anything to do with bullying and stuff?
So I was 6 foot when I was 13. So I was like,
Blimey. I'm
and I
not
was,
6 foot now.
and I was really skinny as well, though.
Right.
So obviously you're dead self-conscious, aren't you? But I would
Mm.
constantly get into altercations with older kids, 16, 17, 18.
Right.
And I was just a kid still, and I kind of hit a pinnacle moment, really. I think it was about 14 years of age. We'd had a few drinks at a party somewhere, and we'd walked to this pub stroke shop where there was like a little off license, and I was with some girls, by just the only lad there. And then something happened. There's a big group of lads there, and basically ended up getting beaten up by a few of them. And they were like men. They were older than me. They didn't know I was younger. And I remember thinking how I never ever want to feel that vulnerable again. I thought I'm never going to feel that vulnerable again. So for me, I was so highly motivated to train. It didn't matter where I had to drive, what I had to do, how hard the training was. The harder it was, the better. Nothing was as bad as that feeling of being vulnerable. So
Wow.
it was the easy option was to do what I did rather than live feeling like that and being scared. So,
Wow.
and that kind of exacerbated as I got into the journey, because you obviously feel terrified and vulnerable as a kid, and your adrenaline's going off. And I started competing. So I started kind of learning to control my fears and face them, because the last thing I wanted to do, I got knocked
Mm.
out in my first competition as well. So it wasn't going very well for me.
Right.
And I never wanted to do it again, but I knew I had to. And then as that kind of went on, I got to a point when I was about 15 or 16, because I'm dyslexic. So we found out when I was 35, I was just in bottom class for everything. And I got to a point where I thought I had limited options, but so I didn't know what to do. You couldn't teach martial arts back then. No one was doing it. And I just knew I knew how I wanted to be as a man in my head. I always visualized it when I was a kid, and I knew exactly what my body would be like. I knew how I'd stand, what I'd be dressing like, what people would think of me and what I'd think of myself. So I was just, what's the hardest thing that I could have done as a younger man? And I was looking, it was the parachute regiment or the Royal Marines. You can't join special forces straight from as a civilian. So, and they're the two ones, aren't they? So I was researching which ones, and obviously, I decided the parachute regiment would suit me. So I went down that route and just committed wholeheartedly to that. But because I was so skinny, they wouldn't let me in. So I had to I failed like on the medical, and I had to come back at probably a year later, I think it was, where I had to kind of build myself up a little bit. But
Right.
I,
Okay.
I hadn't built myself up that, but I just put 4 pairs of bottoms on and extra tops, and just thought I can't put this weight on. I'm just going to try and bluff it a little bit, and
Right.
I managed to just get in under the weight. And
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, you touched upon fear then. I mean, so there's a lot of fear in business, fear of what might happen, fear of competitors. Well,
absolutely,
was
yeah,
there something you learned early on when it come to dealing with fear? Was it a case of, listen, this is the reality. I've got to step onto that mat and do it no matter what?
yeah.
Or was there something you learned about fear and about how you better deal with it?
So to leave it is worse. To leave it's worse. if you know something needs to be done, you've got to do it regardless of how you feel. That's one thing I did learn. I started learning that quite early. It's only a very simple, it doesn't sound very complicated, but it's very powerful. If you apply that in your life a lot consistently and think, right, what needs to be done? Because most people are guided emotionally over what's easiest, the path of least resistance,
Mm-hmm.
really. And they almost lie to themselves. They're unconscious of the fact that they go, oh, it's all right, they're fine, that member of staff's fine, or the relationship I'm in is great. It's not. They know it is. Good's the enemy of great, isn't it? When something's okay, it's not too bad, it's not causing you too many issues or problems, people don't take any action from it. So but I was quite easily able to align with what I really wanted to do and what needed to happen, and then made sure I did that regardless of how I felt doing it.
Wow.
But that took me some practice because it's just terrifying. The unknown is the scariest thing in the world. But when you open the door, the monster's never there. It's never as bad as you think, But when you leave it and you don't look, the monster gets bigger and bigger, doesn't it, in your mind? And you just until it's,
yeah. I mean, we see a lot of it in business, so I'm sure you do as well. Like people who bury their heads in the sand.
oh God, yeah,
A lot of thing in our game. We help a lot of fitness professionals and very, very incestuous industry, always looking what their competitors are doing. And I remember
yeah.
the biggest thing I learned in martial arts with fear was it was my first judo competition, my first match, and I looked across the mats at the guy I was going to face, and his gi was undone, and he was
Mm.
fucking ripped, six pack and everything. So he basically beat me
That wasn't an
before I
accident.
before I got on the mats.
Yeah.
And the annoying thing was, I beat two guys later on in that competition who beat him. So if I hadn't let him get in my head, I probably would have got gold instead of bronze. And that was just such a massive lesson that just because someone
Yeah.
looks a business or is loud or whatever doesn't mean they know more than you.
No, definitely not. Sometimes the loudest person in the room is the most frightened person in the room as well. You don't realize that when you're young. That, the big
Mm.
so-called alpha males that like to establish themselves immediately in a room. That generally don't tend to be the strongest characters.
And was that the same in the army? Did you find was that kind of stuff going on there? There's always like the loud group, and I mean, what was it like going from school into this brand new,
Well,
what's it, male heavy environment?
and absolutely everything I thought it would be, and it was amazing. It's the hardest training you can do. Some of the hardest training in the world that you can do. So to have gone in there, and I just wanted that didn't bother me, and because it took me a year to get in because I had to put weight on, and the streets of Telford back then. It was just I was in fights all the time, and there was no prospects for me there. I was just so grateful to be there. When I got there, I actually enjoyed the training. Like most people hate it, and I was just like, oh, just glad to be here. I love the PT, even though no one actually likes the PT when it gets to the nitty gritty because it's horrendous. But I didn't mind getting into that dark place and just giving everything. The admin was hard when you're a younger man because you're used to your mum doing it, and you come straight from your
Right.
mum doing everything. You make your own bed and you might wash up here and there, but that's totally different to being totally in control and responsible for every single thing that you do, including live ammunition, controlling a weapon that can kill somebody, keeping all your personal kit clean and yourself in good order, and making sure that the lesson, everything you need to know, and then be able to implement it. And you spend your whole time like shitting yourself, excuse my language, but you spend the whole time scared, but just learning to hold it down and not look like you are. So you give an external confidence, but when inside, you're unsure. But once you've done that for so long, you kind of learn to be truly confident in the unknown. So now, even when I'm in a position where I don't know what's going on and I don't know the answer, I'm cool, calm, and collective, and able to know that I will sort it out because I always sort stuff out. I'll find a way, and then things. If you've got that level of confidence, then things start to unfold, and you start to get the answers that you want, and people believe you then as well and buy into it. And if you think the other way and you're closed-minded and you don't believe you can do anything, then it's either way, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, if you were in the military till 25, were there any seeds being sown during that time where you thought that you were going to work for yourself one day? Did you foresee yourself being in the military like till retirement age? Were you still doing your martial arts in the military? What was happening as you were sort of getting to your mid-20s?
Yeah, so I was training still in my martial arts. I was based at Dover for the majority of the time I was there. I was there for like 5 years. And then sometimes we did bits in Aldershot and was on as well. And then I was doing my martial arts, but I trained up to be a PTI as well, physical training instructor. I'd always wanted to be a PTI. And when you go to the training establishment, they're the ones that are taking you through all the PT, and like you look up to them, you think, wow, yeah, I want to do that. That'd be amazing to be able to kind of bring all these people through and to train them. So I did that, become a junior NCO. So I was learning leadership qualities as well, and how to manage people, and learning all the physical aspects, how to warm the body up correctly, hold your own in a group environment. That mixed in with my current martial arts skills, and I did a black belt in when I was in Dover as well, at one of the full contact clubs. But at no stage was I thinking I was going to go out and teach, because nobody was doing it at that stage. That wasn't something that was done. It was the late 90s, and then coming into the early 2000s. But I started training with another family called the Winspers in the Midlands, which is near where I'm from in Telford. But I was based in Dover at the time, so I used to drive back to train with these, because these were the best in the UK at what they were doing at the time. And then I'd train with them on the Friday, Saturday, fight in a tournament on Sunday, and then drive back down to camp. And I'd do that on as many weekends as possible. And they had just come off a seminar of which some Americans had come over from the States. And these guys were teaching martial arts. They were driving sports cars, and you know what the Americans are like with all the flash stuff. Nice. And they were coming over and wowing all the Brits, and with all their suits, and and their stories of making all this money. So and they had some of the stuff didn't rub with me, I'll be honest with you, but some of the systems that they come up with was allowing people to be able to actually take what they've been doing for years and actually earn a living, a good living from it. So, and they'd started to do it. And I remember sitting down with my instructor, and he said, "Why didn't you do it?" And once he planted the seed, it's probably just a fleeting thing, he said. And I saw they were doing it. And then they had 3 full-time centres, because there was the father and the 2 sons. And I'd go and flip between their centres. And I've seen what they were doing, and that they were filling them up. And I thought, they can do it. I can definitely do this. I had got married to my first wife at the time, and had a new baby boy. And I was either going to get posted. So I was at the depot temporarily as a PTI. But I was going to get a full-time post in there, and then go back to my battalion and stay in, or I could choose another path, which is what I chose to do. So I signed off, and then I opened my location in Telford while I was in the army, because I was based at Lichfield at the time. That's where the first phase of the training used to take part. So I used to drive back. It used to take me about 40 minutes, and I was getting paid from the army for like 5 months. So when I started it, I was still getting paid from the army. Right. Nice. Yeah, because of where I was, they were really good. So I knew I needed to have enough just to pay my bills. That's all I wanted to pay. All I wanted was the same amount as I had in the army, doing what I loved, and I'd have been happy. So that's all I did to start with, just to try.
But I mean, you mentioned they're interested about like driving up from Dover on a Friday, like training on a Saturday, fighting on a Sunday. I mean, our motto, you can see behind, is stay hungry. And one of the biggest challenges we have is finding business owners we can help, because they've got to be hungry. So where did that come from? I mean, driving up from bloody Dover, training, competing, fighting, and then driving back. Most people will be like, well, fuck that for a game of soldiers. Where did that come from? Did you learn it, or was it always there?
No, that's always it's an integral part of my character. But that is what you are like as a paratrooper as well. That's so to be as I am anyway, and then to go into like an elite regiment like the parachute regiment, where you are the best non-stop. You're better than everyone else. This is what you do. Everything you do has got to be the very best you've ever done, and then it's not good enough still. So you need to do more than everyone else. You need to lead from the front. You need to outwork everybody. So I had no other option, but that's the way I was going to be. This is why I chose to go down that path. That aligned with the way I was anyway. I was very strong-willed and had obsessive nature. When it comes to something, I'd submerge myself in it. Then that's all I did with anything I ever do. I just totally submerge myself in it, which unfortunately, when people do start up businesses, they don't realize the fact that it's like a newborn baby. It needs all your attention. When they get older, you don't need to be holding the baby and feeding it all the time. You can feed it. But when you start off that, you need to commit submerge yourself within that project until it's up on its own 2 feet and it's got its own legs.
And I mean, another challenge we often find is the curse of the entrepreneur's shiny object syndrome. So, like you say, when you start a business, you've got to focus 100%. You can't afford to get distracted by, especially nowadays,
Yeah.
all this shiny new stuff going on. Oh, I must dance on TikTok and do this and do that. So you immerse yourself in your first business. How did you grow and scale that into like the behemoth it
Yeah.
became?
Pinpoint focus on one thing at a time. Just absolutely submerge myself. Very, very simple. Just think of what my goal is and just edge forward on that until I've got there, even if I'm just dragging myself on my fingertips till I get to that point. And then once I've got there, and like you said, that's very good. Shiny, what do you call it?
Shiny object syndrome. Yeah.
Because this is what people do. You need a goal, you need to know what it is, then you need to know what your first step to get there is, and you need to stay focused. You don't need to stay focused on the goal because that can be quite painful just looking at where you're not, but you have to be focused on the task that you need to do to get you to the goal. So you're fully submerged and present in that task and not get distracted, because if you get distracted and you're trying to go from A to B, and when you get halfway to B and you go, C looks good, then you start to go towards C, then go, oh, D looks even better. You can walk forever and you're never going to get to any destination. And I knew that if I could just, I knew I could get so many students if I just stayed doing what I was doing. So I just did that until I got to that point. And then I thought, right, well, I know I can get to this next one. So it's just pinpoint focus on your goals, not getting distracted, not changing your mind. Anyone can get anything as long as they set it into small goals and they don't get distracted and do everything wrong, even like I did to start with, but learn my lessons. And I just crept my course of action until I got there without changing my mind. Because people can get failing or doing things wrong can be very disheartening. And when you're disheartened, it doesn't feel very nice, and it's quite easy to go, oh, that's not for me, or I didn't do that very good, or I'm not good at that. That's just not the case. You're in learning when it feels like that. That's where you're growing, and people need to kind of understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that story Napoleon Hill talks about, the 3 feet from gold, the person who gives up digging when they're so
Yeah,
close, just to have that tenacity to go after it. And like you say, to firstly know where you're going. A
yeah,
lot of business owners go around in circles because they don't know where they're going. So to have that vision, but it's great what you said. You can't just focus purely on that because you might think, well, I'm not there. So what do
yeah,
I need to do today, tomorrow, this week to move me forward closer
exactly.
to that goal? So your first academy was up and running.
Yeah.
What was and a success? What was the next step after that? When did your sort of 6 R's develop? And what
Oh,
part did that play in your growth?
so the 6 R's didn't come out until, well, they've been in effect for many years, obviously, but it wasn't until I wrote the book that I put them into this. So it was probably only about 18 months ago that I actually restructured them into there. But what happened is we had the one full-time centre, and then we had about 400 students there in its peak day.
400 in one club.
Yeah,
Wow.
yes, in a town with, I don't know, 60,000 people or something.
So whereabouts in
So
Telford was that?
it's in Tweedale and Madeley.
Oh, okay, okay.
Still there now, still there to this day. So and I've got a few centres. I've got 2 centres in Telford now. I've got one in Wellington as well, the World Champion Academy in Wellington, and I've got the main headquarters in Madeley, and then I've got about 20 schools around it, like primary schools and stuff. So what happened is we had the one location. We were starting to get people to do the black belts. The black belt, I obviously put my own military feel on it as well, made it so it was the hardest thing that they were ever going to do. Had to be. I wanted to put my name was going to be on it. I wanted them to earn it. And I also, because I'd done so many hard things myself that I didn't know you was going to do till I could do it. I knew people had loads more left in the tank, and so I wanted to absolutely push them to the limits and beyond, because once they do that and they complete it, they're never the same again. The whole self-image flips because they thought they were there. Really, that's the type of character they are. That's life-changing. So that's what I did. And we had such motivated black belts, as you can imagine, that were really bought into it then. And then these guys wanted to teach. It's the natural thing. Once you know something, it's the way that the world works. You should pass it on, and you feel compelled to, and you want to. Nothing's better than mentoring and coaching someone. And we've all had coaches and mentors ourselves, and appreciate the time you get from them. So I started opening other schools, utilizing the guys that we had. Did it all wrong, messed things up. The schools ended up shutting, and I had the business arrangement wrong. you know, and rather than, we had a few people that had grown quite big schools and they left and they went by themselves. And that was horrible. You know, I said you're experiencing all of the dramas of life times 10, people that I'd been best friends with and people I'd known for years that would, and then because of money, you got them successful and they ended up flipping because I had no contracts in place because I was dead relaxed about it all. So rather than blaming them, I thought, right, I always look at what can I do? It's easy to blame someone else, isn't it? But then there's no accountability there. So I thought, right, rather than blaming them for that, they weren't being paid enough. How do I structure this so they're happy? So anything I've ever done moving forwards, everyone needs to be, it needs to be beneficial to everybody and everyone needs to win. So I learned that, and that was a very, very valuable lesson. So even though it was very painful at the time, that my whole model is based on that now. So it works for them. Then I made sure that I had contracts in place, regardless of who they are and how awkward it is. We spoke about this earlier. You know, you've got to do things properly. So you're young and naive when you're young, when you're less experienced in business. Sorry. So if anyone that's not doing that, and you should, that's one thing I'd say straight away. You know, you've got to do it. It doesn't have to be awkward. It's a normal part of life. Everyone does it, and it's to hedge their bet. It's to look after them as well in case something happens to them. They get injured. You know, they want some stability. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. So that helped me do it, and then I just started kind of putting together a training course because I was getting more people that were doing it. So I thought, right, so I had to sit down over weeks and months and put everything I'd learned within the military together into a kind of structured, and all the stuff I'd learned from seminars and other stuff from my martial arts experience, and put together our own unique training program, which then became the basis of my training course. So if you get highly motivated people, you put them on a training course, really push them as we did with the black belt. So that you're really challenging them. You got someone highly motivated, perfectly ready for the job, that want to go and do it. And now I've got a model that worked, which would service and help them as well. So it's not just user friendly for the franchisor. Okay, that's no good, is it? Because relationships will break down, and it's not got any legs to stand on and no longevity. So I made a system that worked for them. Do you know what I mean? And it will work for me ultimately if they get successful and we could scale. So that's what we did.
Excellent, excellent. So say if a martial arts club owner came to like your day in Telford, you go through the 6 Rs. I mean, what does their kind of journey look like? Are there some people there who maybe have just started up on their own? Are there people there who've been in the game a long time, but for whatever reason, they're just not as far along down the line as they want? I mean, what kind of people are coming to you for help?
Well, I've just recently, after Saturday, I've started opening my course up to anyone that wants to go on it, basically.
Okay.
So before it was just our franchisees. So we would use that as a selection process for them. And we would skim off the top, the very best. You had to get an A grade. So they would fight off. So I would offer jobs as well. I'd offer 1 or 2 jobs and have 10 people on a course. And the winner would take all the glory. So, and that's quite different to like any other franchise. You can just buy and just, if you've got them, you can get in. I was like, nah. So my goal was never to be the biggest. It was just to be the best. Because we had the standard and the quality, then the reputation starts to grow. And years later, the depth of your students and instructors, we ended up getting a great reputation and becoming big. So that's what I would say. Concentrate on the quality, your integrity, your values, and your brand. Make sure that's all in line, and you stick with it, and you don't make any sacrifice from that. And then everything else comes from that. So
Yeah, so definitely, I've seen so many franchises fall down because the franchisor just accepts to check off anyone and everyone. And I imagine if someone's waving a check for like 40 grand, it'll be tempted to take it. But then your network's compromised, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's fast money. It's a deal with the devil. You know what I mean? It's going to bite you. It's not going to work. You're going to do it right, and it will come. You know, if you do things correctly, it will happen and it will come, but it will be slower. You know, it's the right path, and then you're building something solid. Then, aren't you? It's like building a house, not putting any foundations down on it. It's gonna first big storm, and it's coming down, isn't it? So you've got to do it right.
Absolutely. So I mean, like you say, there's good money, there's bad money. Who aren't you suitable for? What are the kind of warning signs if someone wanted to come to you and say, "Oh, Lee, I want to be a part of your course. I want you to mentor me." What kind of questions you ask to find out whether or not you can help them?
So we want people with big aspirations. We want people that want to expand. So people outside of my organisation, when they're coming from my organisation, they haven't got a martial arts school. So we're building them from scratch. And I like that because you can input in them properly. You can build up the right way. So when they're coming from somewhere else, we're mentoring them. So we're not going to be as hands-on approach in all of the teaching side of things. We can advise on that for them, but what we want is people of the right ilk. Okay, so anyone, and I didn't properly answer your question earlier about the best part of the event. The best part of the event was the 12 guest speakers I have are my associates. I call them associates, but they're not associates. They are family. They are my tribe. They are people that we are connected with. I don't work with someone unless there's a genuine connection with them, that I feel that I can help them and I want to be around them. So I don't work with people I don't like. And I can tell straight away if someone's, if they're a bit insecure or they're a bit nervous because they're meeting you, that's fine. You can break that down. Once they've done our training course, all their egos are gone. We've built them back up from scratch, and then they're humble and they're ready to listen then. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so yeah, that really.
Nice. And I mean, we sort of touched upon hunger early on. Again, to come back to warning signs, is there anything when someone approaches you that you in the nicest possible way, you haven't got the drive to make a success of it? You've been in the game a long time. You can probably spot the warning signs earlier than maybe people who are newer to business.
Yeah. So low skilled, overweight, and cash hungry. That's the worst, because you're not all they're going to be caring about is themselves. So right. So at that stage, they're not very good. They can't really give as much value as what our instructors would like to do, and they're going to be all about themselves and what they can get. And also, they've got a massive ego as well, because it's okay to have an ego. You need one. If you're the living, breathing example of success as an instructor, you need to be the king of the castle. Do you know what I mean? Right. And you need to portray that, and everyone needs to know. And in your environment, they dance to your tune, because that's the way you've got to be. You're a leader. They're buying into what you do. But you also need to be able to be humble when it's time to learn. So if you take a big ego into a learning environment and think that you know everything, you're shutting yourself off from any further knowledge, because you don't need it, because you know everything. So you have to be able to be a white belt. We call it like a white belt mentality. And that was the great thing about the event that we did on Saturday. We had some really successful people there, all black belts, masters, grandmasters, sixth dans, fifth dans. But they went there as a white belt, humble, to learn and to listen from anyone around them. Because anyone who's successful knows that when you can learn from everybody around you, you're not doing everything. Someone is doing something that you're not in some area.
So there's a quote on the wall here, just can only see the end of it, by Henry Ford. It's like, anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. And I think there are some people who just can't be taught because they know it all already. And we can spot that a lot quicker than we used to, because we just used to try and want to help everyone. But the fact is, you can't.
Some people don't want helping, or they think they do, or they'll come and try and milk you for as much as they can, as much free information as possible. So I give load of free stuff out, and so do you guys. You give so much free information that really you could just scroll through. If you're proactive, you could scroll through all of your podcasts, watch everything, and you're going to be way more informed to succeed than you would be if you hadn't of. But some people just do that and then never commit as well. So I don't like that wishy-washiness. Do you know what I mean? Be reciprocal. Don't mind giving anyone stuff and bits of information and helping bring everyone up. But someone's going to try and milk you for as much information as possible and not want to be reciprocal in the relationship. This is what I was talking about having genuine connections with people. You don't mind I'm happy to give my money to a mentor that genuinely cares about me, that wants to help me. I'm glad to give them the check, aren't you? You've got a mentor, you said as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
You pay them, you want to give it. You're grateful for it. Thank you very much for because it's priceless. Some of the information you can get if someone's ahead of you and you just walk in their footsteps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a tough realization for me. So my dad was a GP in Telford for like many years, and so he's always instilled in me as a kid, you've got to help everyone. There's a doctor, he did. How many times he had to fucking go out on call in the middle of the night for someone who was just hungover or whatever. But it took me a long time to realize in business, we just can't do that. We can't afford to help everyone.
Yeah.
And it's ideally getting to that point where you can find out sooner rather than later who can have your time, because once that time's gone, you don't get it back. So, when we do talk about time a lot here, it's a currency of life. So with everything you do, with everything you have done and want to do, how is your kind of work-life harmony looking at the moment? The time you
Yeah.
spend with the people who matter to you.
So what I do, and I've always said this, and you touched on it earlier, where do you get that drive from? In order to succeed, you have to 100% submerge yourself in a task, and you need to put it right at the top of your priorities. Some people won't say this; they'll say you live a balanced life. Rubbish. I was a world champion and an international fighter. I've trained multiple world champions, and the ones that wanted to balance everything out never became the successful ones. And I know some people won't want to hear it, but if you're not doing as much as you can, someone else is, and they'll win. They'll get the glory. So you can't like that. I've got a wife, I've got 3 children, I've got a house, I've got multiple businesses. There's a lot of things and a lot of moving parts, and I've just written a book as well. That took such a lot of time you wouldn't even imagine, for a year. And then I've launched my new mentoring company, the Elite Martial Arts mentoring company. So there's lots of stuff going on. But what I do, I submerge myself in a task, and rather than being balanced, I counterbalance afterwards. So that I will then like go on holiday. I'll turn my phone off for like the first 3 or 4 days, and I'm submerging myself back with the family and giving attention to them. Or then I will block half a day off, and then I'll go, and then we'll go out for some food. We'll go out on the weekends. Now, weekends for me, I used to always work my whole life. When I was either in the military, you're working a lot of weekends, but I'd always be fighting. So every weekend, I'd be training on Saturday, and I'd teach Saturday morning. And so teach Saturday morning, train afterwards in squad trainings for Saturday afternoons, and tournaments for Sunday. So I was always busy every weekend. So now I'm not. I don't mind. My week can be as full as it likes. I work from home. I see my family when I'm here. I'm lucky. I'm in my office. So I manage my time really well now. And I probably see my kids more than a lot of men that are in an office working like 8 till 6 later sometimes, isn't it? And then they're exhausted on a weekend and probably got no energy to do anything else, or they're catching up on other work stuff. So counterbalancing, not balanced life. Submerge yourself in the project like a newborn baby. Get it up so it's self-sufficient. Step back once you know everything. Then when the plates are spinning, you can manage spinning the plates then. But what I've seen a lot of people when they do their second business that have been very successful at their first business, and then try to do a second business in their spare time, and then wonder why it doesn't work. And most people I know that start a second business after a successful first business fail because of that reason, because they've not got the first one up sufficient enough to step back and then go submerge themselves in the next project with the same passion that they had for the first one. Because it's do or die on that first one. I hedged all my bets. I bet the ranch. I had to make it work. I had no safety net and I had to jump. So if you can keep, and obviously now I'm in a different financial situation, but I still approach stuff with that same rawness every single time. I trick myself. And that is the importance and the urgency. That is how high up in my hierarchy of values that is to me in that time. And if I don't, I'll only do that if I'm doing a project. That is how I am, so it has to be to work.
Love that counterbalance. That's agree 100%. It's whatever you're doing, it's about being present, whether that's talking to a client, whether that's on a podcast, whether that's with your kids. My 14-year-old, she was only 8 at the time, but it was her who taught me that. She was saying I don't spend much time with her, and I was like, well, I do. She goes, well, no, it's always you and your phone. And that was a real wake-up call when an 8-year-old tells you that. So it's like, I'd rather spend an hour just with my daughter rather than 3 hours with her and my phone going off.
Quality, absolutely. They'd appreciate that as well. So when you're doing something, it's not about quality. It's about it's not about quantity of sporadic, half attention. If you just quality with anyone, any meeting you've got with someone, if you're talking to someone, it's a member of staff, then make sure you're fully present with them and give them your attention. If it's your kids, sit with them, play computer games with them or whatever, take them out, go for a bike ride, don't have your phone on, don't do both. Obviously, we all do it sometimes, and sometimes things are pressing, but like you've said, smaller amounts of time make it quality.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely. So, I mean, most clients come to us because they can't give their marketing enough attention. They can't give it the focus it needs. So, obviously, marketing is one of the modules in your days in your mentoring program. So, what are some of the favorite or the most effective ways to market your business and what you teach to your clients?
Yeah, well, the best ways, I was actually talking about this in detail on Saturday as well, and I'll outline it in my book as well, which is called Elite Martial Arts Instructor, just in case you're interested. So most of the stuff we do is free. The free marketing works better, face to face, genuine engagement with people, meetings, connections, talking to people. So, and we've got a wealth of things that we do, because I work the 80-20 rule. So what I do is I try to get the maximum bang for my buck, and the maximum amount of effort and input for my time. You know the 80-20 rule. So input and output. So input isn't equal to output. If you was to do 10 forms of marketing, 2 of the forms of marketing would bring in 80% of the results.
Yeah.
What I do is I identify the 20% that gives you the 80%, and then I spend 100% of my time or money on those. So I get a maximum effort for maximum results for my effort or money. And I do everything. Not because I'm lazy, because I'm efficient, and I spend more time doing that, so I'm more productive. So for me, the 80-20 rule is primary schools, because 80% of our market's children. So yeah, so we do a lot of stuff at primary schools where we'll go in, do an assembly. We can do, or we go town centres and we'll do a big demo. But rather than making it all singing and all dancing and getting everybody with choreographed, kind of routines to do, we just run the classes up there. And then we have a big team of staff up there, and we actually just sign people up while we're there. So it's having the systems in place to capitalize on the attention you're getting, though, because it's all good and well having attention. It's all good and well getting leads, isn't it? But if you got not dealing with them, you know what I mean? I say to our guys, every lead you've got,
our biggest challenge, that is.
Exactly. They've got these leads. And do you know what happens with some people? The more leads they get, the less valuable they become to them. And that is not how you grow. That's like having more money and spending more money. That's not how you get rich. You value money and you get more money, and then you can grow your wealth. So it's about treating every lead like it's the most important thing you've ever done. It could be worth if someone subscribes to whatever your service is, it could be an annual membership that could total up to hundreds of pounds. I don't know whatever business it might be for somebody. So they are really valuable. So they need to be dealt with and spoken to. And if I've seen people that I've been out with them, they've got a lead, and I've gone, I've been out, and I was like, what is it? And they went, I've just got 2 leads. I'm like, wow, like, and that's your response. You are never going to be successful in business. You should be jumping up and cheering that anyone has been, showing some attention to your business. And that is the difference, that mindset difference. And then you'll deal with that lead. The message you send them has got more sincerity to it. It's more genuine. There's more connection there, and they'll feel that when you contact them. So back onto the other forms of marketing as well. So town centres, schools, school assemblies. We go on the school gates as well afterwards. So we've done an assembly, then we go on the gates. We text all the parents. So, and then we send flyers out. It's all coordinated, like a military attack. All happens on the same day. They get the text message about 2 PM to say that we're on the school gates. We've done the assembly with the kids, telling them we're on the school gates. We get them all fired up. They all have flyers given to them that day. All of it's got to coordinate together. Then we'll see them on the gates, and then we'll sign loads of people up and book them straight in. And then it's our confirmation process. Make sure that's thorough and sincere, and then make sure that when they turn up, you're giving them a 48-hour, 24-hour confirmation as well. When we do our confirmations, we require a form of action back off them. They must say yes, because we're oversubscribed, because we always are. And then if they say yes, they're coming, they are. That's what we've found. So when we do our confirmation, you might only get 50% of them say yeah. So what we do is the following day, when it's actually on, we send the same message out again in the morning, get another 20% of them. And then at midday, we ring anyone else that hasn't done it. So when we turn up for the intro, we'll say, right, there was, how many yeses have you got? I don't care about how many booked in, because that's who's turning up. So you know exactly who's coming. So it's that thoroughness with every single thing you do, every single time you do it, with every single member of your staff. It's not rocket science. There's no one big success. Success is the little things, the basics, done consistently, sincerely, over and over again.
I think this is another occasion where shiny object syndrome comes in, because it might not be big and sexy, but it is that effort of like contacting these people whose data you've got. Like, it's not a case of leaving one voicemail. It's being ethical and polite, but the fortunes in the follow-up and like speaking to people, you know, in a world that supposedly has never been more connected. I
Mm.
think a lot of people have never felt more disconnected. So having
Very
conversations with
true. That is.
people,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
And
obviously
all
I
that
know you,
noise creates silence. All that noise, it just creates silence, doesn't it? Because people are bombarded with so much stuff that
Mhm.
nothing means anything. You know, nothing has that value, does it anymore? When years gone by, when I first started, you could put a flyer out, you could put loads of flyers and be bomb. We'd
That
fill
was
up
it.
with flyers. People are bombarded with constant Facebook marketing now, everything all the time, aren't they? So you got to stand out from the crowd, and you got to be really, you know, grateful when your leads come through and deal with
Yeah.
them accordingly.
Flies in the yellow pages, that used to be enough, didn't it?
Yeah, the yellow pages is great. Yeah.
So I mean, one of the R's you mentioned was retention. So
Yeah.
your martial arts centers, they've got lots of like clients, customers in. Any kind of tips you can share with our listeners when it comes to looking after your customers? Because you know the old leaky bucket, get people in, that's great, but it ain't
So
worth it
true.
if half of them drop out at the bottom.
Not, and what you're saying there crosses over because I know you're a marketing expert and I know you're one of the best in the game. And what you say crosses over to any business. The leaky bucket is exactly what I say to people because you could be front end because marketing is really important and you're throwing them all in. But if you've got a leaky bucket, guess what? They're all coming out the back door and all the work you've done. And you see people do this big churn all the time, don't they? And
Yeah,
they keep about the same size that they get to. So in order to get bigger, you've got to plug those holes, haven't you? So
yeah.
for us, for retention, is for martial arts, the basic thing is our product is the classes, the delivery of the
Hmm.
classes. So I'm saying it as my product because this can relate to other companies then that would listen. So the best marketing and retention is the best possible product you can give. So for me, every class we do is the best class we've ever done. That's our motto. That's the way we live. We've got to be inspired by what we write in our lesson plans. We've got to be motivated to deliver it. We're not clock watching. We're fully present. So that in itself is a good, and not everyone it will do that. And so that's the motto we've got. Then we meet and greet. So everyone, we're dealing with everyone. We have 3 points of contact with everyone, every single class. That's part of our processes in
Wow.
our retention. So a point of contact would be use of name, eye contact, appropriate touch like a fist bump or a high five, shaking hands, pat on the back, a correction, use of name. So, and mat chat, we call it, when we have general chat at appropriate times in the class when we're asking about little Johnny, how his holiday was, or well done for your grading, well done on getting that trophy the other day, you were brilliant in the tournament. So you're making, and it sounds staged, but it's not because it's coming from a place of sincerity. You want to be genuine and connect with people. And this shows you how to do it to everybody. Otherwise, you can quite easily put all your attention on one or two people and then other people feel neglected. Do you know what I mean? So this is a system. So me, if I'm running a class and I've got two other assistants, all three of us are having 3 points of contact at least with every student, every single class. So no
Wow.
one's feeling neglected. So that's one point. Another thing we do is we look at the attendance. So we look at it every Monday, we get our stats. You must be big on statistics. Like it's the general workings of your business. If you don't know how many customers you've got, you don't know like paying customers you've got, how many for us, they sign up on direct debit. So we just look at the direct debit amounts. That's how many customers we've got. But the more important number is what's your active student count for us? How many turned up and trained that week? So if you've got 300 students, but your student count is 180, that score needs a lot of attention. That's not good because it should be closer to like 260, really, something like that. You should be having a, you know, and what you do is you look at you focus on that gap of who wasn't in. Because there's a saying in martial arts is you're either one step, and this is the same for any business, you're either one step closer to your black belt or one step closer to leaving. So if you're in class, kicking and punching that week, you're safe. They're on the journey. They're all in. They've been engaged with you within the class. Those that haven't, they're going to start getting out of the habit. And
Hmm.
if you miss 2 or 3 weeks of anything, you know yourself, you stop going to the gym, you're out
Yeah.
of the habit. So what we do is we will focus on those and we will text message, ring, stalk them, let them know we're about, let them know they can make the classes up. And then we identify when they come back into class, and then we give extra TLC to those ones as well to manage that. So there's a few off the top of my head there that would help with
Wow.
retention.
Wow. Brilliant. Yeah, it's scary how many business owners don't, you know, we're not about what they call it, paralysis by over analysis. but you've
Yeah.
got to know the key metrics in your business. And
Yeah.
and sometimes we'll have an initial session with a client and they don't know how many customers they've got. They don't know what the average, and for us as marketers, the crucial number is what's the average lifetime value of a customer.
Yeah.
So okay, they might pay me 50 quid for that first haircut, but that's not their value. They might come to me once a month for 2 years.
This
That
is
is
what I
the
was saying
lifetime
earlier,
value.
the value of that customer over, and that's how you should treat them. They are your business. They're that important,
Absolutely. And yeah, so I mean, retention's important, which will help with referrals as well.
We do loads of internal marketing as well for referrals. So we do buddy days, or it
Go
depending
on,
on.
explain.
Yeah, so we do. Some of the biggest schools I know don't pay for marketing. So they do. They'll do buddy days and internal marketing. So they do competitions where you can bring a friend and win the shiny bike, or you can. Some schools have got it really strict. And there's one traditional school where, in order to do your yellow belt, you have to have recruited someone to the school to show
Wow.
commitment to the school. So that takes some real strong
Blimey.
leadership to do that one. But what you can do is give people a £50 gift voucher for the school or something big. But you've just got to ask people. Everyone's got friends and they're likely to be similar to them. And if they like your product, they will know people, but you have to ask them and give them an incentive. Just asking is good, but then give them an incentive from it as well. So we do buddy days and we'll do, it depends what the flavor of the month is. It could be International Women's Day. Then we'll have, we'll on the women's class, we'll do extra women's stuff. Could be bullying week. So, you're going to do something along that flavour. We do siblings where you bring your brother and sister in. It could be Father's Day, bring your dad in. It could be Mother's Day, bring your mum in. There's always something. And then you would incorporate your lesson plans around that. Once you've brought them in, you obviously take the details down. You need them anyway. And then there's no point of just doing that because no one's going to come back. You ring them the next day, ask them if they enjoyed themselves, and offer them an offer they cannot refuse to come in, And
Excellent. And I mean, so obviously, you say majority of kids come to your classes. So if we look at like grown-ups, look at adult business owners, what are some of the benefits for them to consider at least going and trying out a good martial art that could help them in life and in business?
For who? Sorry, for
like an adult business owner, like why would considering trying out a good martial art, be beneficial to them?
Oh God, if everyone did martial arts, you wouldn't have any of the problems that you've got in society nowadays.
Wow,
Because
that's a soundbite.
It really is. You wouldn't have any of the issues. 1.5% of the population trained. There's 66 million people. This is me knowing my statistics.
1.5%, is that all?
Yeah, so it's 800,000 people at 66 million. Only 1.5%. So my goal, this is what I'm doing, my elite training course, is to grow the industry find other generals and other people, like-minded people in the industry, work with them together, drop our guards, all share our information together and raise it. Imagine we could double it to 3%. Everyone would have more than enough customers, more students, more schools, and it will directly, and I know from experience, because that when I've opened schools like in Telford, and you're making a real difference to lots of people. You get these people up to black belt and you've trained hundreds within one area. These people are going on to do different careers, different jobs. They're inspiring and helping other people. And also they're going to be a better parent. They're more humble. They learn about failure and overcoming failure. They've gone through adversity. So it's a really good character development program. And you get to know who you are. And then you get to improve that person. You know what I mean? Because most people are unconsciously incompetent to most of their character traits and their abilities. And what happens when you do martial arts is you become consciously incompetent. And then you go, oh, actually, I'm not very good at this. It's like most blokes assume how hard they are. And they're unconsciously incompetent. Big Dave down the pub until he goes down to a martial arts class, gets roundhoused in the face by someone or choked out on the mats and realizes, actually, I'm very, very vulnerable and not anything like I thought. But people don't want to know that because it doesn't feel very nice. But I prefer to know it so I can then do something about it and make it real and build real confidence. And then those people have been humbled by being around people better than them. So they're not bullies, they're more considerate and they're nicer people. The big tough people, the hardest people I know, and some of the nicest and kindest, sincere people I know as well.
Yeah. That fear of failure is massive, isn't it? Just that so much good stuff isn't even attempted because people are like, well, What if it doesn't work? What if people laugh? What if people comment on Instagram because that didn't work? And so they don't give it a shot. And I think probably so much good stuff just never happens because people worry
Yeah.
what other people might say.
You've got 100% chance of failure if you never do it, you know. So
Yeah, no,
definitely going to fail if you don't do it. And if you do it and you fail, you're no worse off than where you were. But you won't fail, because if you're committed wholeheartedly to something, you'll be terrible at it, but you'll learn. That's the learning part, where you feel terrible, like you don't know anything. That's you learning. You're testing and adjusting your environment. So just keep adjusting your course till eventually you start moving forwards to where you need to be headed.
Well, speaking of fit, I mean, you've obviously grown and been super successful. Have you had to deal with like idiots online? Have you had much negativity in the past you've had to deal with?
Not really. I've been surprised, actually. I thought when the book come out there might be more of that, but um, you know, I think because my credentials as well, like I really have. Like, I don't think anyone can question what I've done. I've won multiple world titles. I've trained some of the best fighters in the world, and my background as a paratrooper. I mean, I do know my stuff, and I know my stuff, and I've done it, and I've led by the front. So, but I suppose I'm not successful enough yet, because I need to get some of them, don't I? I'm obviously not pushed myself out to a wide enough audience yet, and I'm sure that will happen as I do, and I'll welcome it, because you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, are you? The idea is, if you're authentic and you're real, you're just going to attract the right people to your business that are in line with you, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I don't try to be a kind of user friendly, um, no opinion on anything type of a person. I think it's obviously you don't want to be the other way. You don't want to be a very unuser friendly, opinionated person either. But I just try to be. I know I'm not, so I just try to be real. I've got a lot of skill sets that people probably wish they had, because of my lifestyle and what I've done. So, and I think a lot of people kind of, if they haven't done that in their lives, kind of want that, or someone like that around them. So yeah, I haven't. So I might get loads from saying that now. But
So with everything you've achieved, what do you think's been the biggest achievement in business for you?
writing my book for me,
Okay.
because I didn't I was I'm dyslexic. I found out when I was 35. I couldn't read or write properly when I left the army when I was 20, about 25. Just enough to get by. I couldn't anything over about 3 or 4 letters. I couldn't spell. I could spell any letters, 3 or 4s. Anything above that, I couldn't. And my grammar was terrible. Just wrote one big sentence for a whole paragraph, and just kind of write how I spoke. But then, because I was made to in business, I had to start communicating with people.
Mm.
I read about 200 books a lot in self-development and business, and that's how I learned, because it was books, it wasn't audios when I first started. So I had to, and I literally learned to read and write properly through that, just submerging
Wow.
myself. I'd read some books 4 or 5 times. So that increased my vocabulary. Then I'd be having to write emails to people and reordering my processes and starter letters, and so and it just unfolded, and then I did a course when I was older to try and improve myself.
Oh, wow.
That's where I found out I was a dyslexic, you see. So and then I built that up and I wrote, but I would never have thought I'd written a book. I haven't even read a book when I was 24. To write one for me, and I literally put my heart and soul into it. I put everything into that book, and it is, for me, it's a collection of everything. And there's so much information in there that can help people. I mean, I've had people. I'm not saying it's to plug the books. It really doesn't matter. I'm not going to sell
Oh,
that many.
plug away.
No, I'm not saying it's just generally because it might help some people, because the marketing in it. I've had people that have nothing to do with martial arts go, there's so many things in that book to do with mindset, and to do with how you approach things, and to do with just general marketing in business that cross over. I'd say there's probably 20% of it, which is, martial arts related, and another 30% of it's stories and anecdotes and entertainment, put into a way. So I was really pleased at how it kind of, so must have a look at it now. I think, how did I do that? So for me, that was the biggest achievement. Yeah. I think.
And what about your biggest achievements in life?
I've been a parent, isn't it? Yeah. Being a parent and my kids looking up to me and really like wanting to kind of, I've got 2 boys and I've got a daughter. So a 23-year-old son, he's a third-degree black belt.
God,
Yeah.
bloody hell! Right, you're way ahead of me on that front.
Yeah.
Then.
So he teaches martial arts now, works with us.
In
And my
in Telford.
Telford, yeah, the Telford and the Wellington venues. So, and he had all sorts of issues himself when he was younger with school and reading, and he's grown up so much and developed as well. So he's a similar journey to what I had. And my 16-year-old son, they're both very similar to me and had the similar issues. And they're both massive when they were young. And he's 16 now, and he's a first degree black belt. He did a qualified instructor. He's at military preparation college, ready to try and get into the army as a paratrooper as well.
Wow.
So, and then we've got my daughter, who's the clever one, 13 years of age. Yeah, it's beautiful. She's doing martial arts as well. And for your kids to look at you and and to be proud is the best, I'd say.
What do you think? How do you think you would have reacted if your kids didn't really fancy the martial arts route? They tried, it wasn't for them.
I had no choice to get to black belt. So, because I value the life skills it gives, I said that you can get to black belt, you can give up, and they would have. None of my kids wanted to do it. They hated it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they didn't like it. Now they love it. So, because once you make someone keep going over and over again, then eventually you only like it because you're not very good at it. Like no one, and when you're a kid, you're so raw. If you're not very good at it, you feel stupid, which equals bad. So I don't want to do it. So if you just make them, and they stop struggling after a bit, and they realise they've got no choice, they're going to do it. But my youngest son, he really hated it, and now he loves it. He's got his black belt. He totally transformed him as well, and my eldest son totally transformed by it. So he was super shy. My eldest son was super shy and wouldn't speak. So I gave him a job as an instructor and said, right, you are not going to be a shy person. You're going to be talking to people every single day, parents. You're going to be running classes. And now he's a really confident guy. So you're just about exposure to stuff. So I don't care if they are. Being a parent isn't giving your kids what they want. It's giving them what they need. I'm definitely a lot softer now as I've got older, and maybe even more so with my daughter as well, because I'm getting older. But I was like, you would have no excuse. You're doing it, and it's paid off, and they're all so happy about it. So now they've gone. I'm thinking about the man I'm creating, not the child there. Like you normally find that with the mums and the dads, the conflict they get. The mums wanting to as much comfort as possible in that moment for the child, which is their maternal instincts, isn't it? And that's great. And if you just left to the dad's device, you'd probably have a lot less kids, wouldn't you? Be falling off things and dying. But for me, I was like, I'm managing the man he's going to be. So I don't think some of my kids really bonded more with me as they got older, and they saw what I was doing. They saw the value in it, and not so much when they were younger.
It's certainly a challenge to push through when you're not the best in the room, because we see this all the time in business networking. The people who they want to be in groups where they're the big dog, so they're the one that everyone else looks up to. But of course, you're not learning anything. Whereas me and Joel, we want to be almost like the least successful people in the room, because then we'll get pulled up and we can learn and learn and learn. Just for an ego point of view, to be the best in the room all the time, surely just going to plateau at some point. It's good to, and it keeps you humble as well.
It does, yeah. You're in the wrong room if you're the best, if you're the most experienced. And that's the problem I used to find when I used to go to like networking events, and I've been on success seminars. I've done every seminar you can think. And I didn't mean this in any way, in a rude way, but I was normally probably one of the most successful in the room. And I didn't mind that. And you'd go there and you'd just kind of help people. But I thought, it's the wrong room. I'd pay a lot of money. You've probably done similar courses yourself, and you pay a lot of money to go on them, don't you? And it's just like, I'm paying money and I'm like helping people, you know what I mean? A substantial amount. I wanted to go into the main room, and you never know where it is, because there's so many smoke and mirrors, isn't there? Especially now. Yeah. And the people that you think are successful and running even successful, networking things aren't that successful. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I've started something called the Elite Network as well. This is something extra I do with a friend of mine, entrepreneur called Danny Walker. Runs one of the biggest marketing agencies in Liverpool. I'll have to put you in contact, actually. So
okay.
Yeah, so we are putting together, because we've done it for years. We've traveled around the world with people, and we've done all sorts of events, and because of the network, we've managed to infiltrate into other people's groups that are a higher level than us. And because we're sincere and we like to connect with people know that. Successful people know that as well. They're not what you think. They're not these cutthroats. They are normally genuinely people that find a network of people they connect with, and we share resources and assets. We've got friends. One of them's got an aviation company. He's got a fleet of planes and helicopters, which we've been able to use. And one's got a fleet of luxury cars. We've been away with them, boats. You know what I mean? And everyone just
Nice.
shares and lets you use stuff as if it's theirs. So you don't need, if you have a good tribe of people, a good
Yeah,
network
absolutely.
of people, like-minded people, and everybody's all in with each other, then you can really you can benefit off everybody else's success as well.
Absolutely. Finding those networks sometimes is hard and you have to kiss a few frogs to find that prince. But when you found a good network, like say, like-minded individuals who are happy to share rather than hoard, it's life-changing. So are you I mean, amazing speaking to you. How do people find out more about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, if they're interested, go on to Lee Matthews Official. So that LeeMatthewsOfficial.com is my website, and then all my social media is Lee Matthews Official. All of
Excellent.
it.
Excellent.
And
And you up for a couple of quick fire questions before we go?
by the way,
Excellent. Right. Favorite film?
Back to the Future trilogy.
Oh, okay. Which of the three?
So again,
Which of the three Back to the Futures? If you had to pick one.
oh, one. The first one's the
Yeah.
best. Close
Yeah.
second. Two was good though as well. And the Matrix would come second as well. And their trilogies that I like. I really like those as well.
Oh, see, I love the first Matrix. Loved it. I just couldn't get to grips with the other two.
You know, like I love the second one as much as the first. The third one was needed for conclusion, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? But, it's the same with Back to the Future 3. It was needed to tie the whole thing in, but it wasn't as good as the first.
And have you seen the new Matrix? Because I haven't watched that yet. I'm too worried.
I watched it. It was all right. It's very difficult when something's so big and so successful to get anywhere near, what it is, especially nowadays, because they don't have the budget now, do they? People are streaming films. A lot of the films that come out are very B and C rated, I think, that you get in. You got one actor that's in there and then loads of no ones that you don't know.
And then they're on, like I say, they're on the telly a month later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right. Second one. Your favorite mistake
Favorite mistake that I've made or that I've seen someone make?
that you've made?
What I said earlier, the model that I had in business where the people that I was two or three people I was really close to all broke off within the course of a year. And it was one of the most devastating emotional experiences for me. And it took me, first time it happened, took me a year to get over it. I was just heartbroken.
Oh,
and
wow.
then the second time took me 6 months. And then the third time it happened, I'd already figured out what I was going to do. And I had things in place to cover it. And it was business as normal the next day. You don't arrive in business to everything that can go wrong, has gone wrong, and you're still there, stronger than ever. Neo had to die, didn't he, in the Matrix to become the one? I mean, so I always say that to people. Everything's got to go wrong. Yeah. Everything's got to go wrong first, and then you're emotionally stronger. And then, as long as you take responsibility for it and don't just be all hateful and blaming, take whatever it is, however hard it is, take responsibility for it, and then look at what you can change and change something so it doesn't happen again.
I read this morning, a setback is a setup for a comeback.
It is, absolutely.
And I'd never heard that. Maybe it's a famous line, but I thought, fucking hell, that's good.
It's good, isn't it, when you hear those ones? You go, oh, yeah, that resonates. Yeah, I get that.
Nice one. Well, Lee, it's been amazing speaking to you. Delivered a whole load of value to our listeners. So I know you're a busy man, so appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
More than welcome. Thank you very much.
Take it easy, Lee.